And when you're back in Chicago, I swear. I hate that song. I just want to put that out there. It's every other TikTok is that song. But what's going on, guys? My name is Mark Roden, and in today's video, we're going to be going over 16 dirt cheap cars that I believe are only going to rise in price. What does this guy mean? What is he talking about? Well, I mean cars that are relatively cheap for what I believe they're going to get to at some point in the near future. Obviously, with each car, I'll talk about why I think they're going to get there, where I think they'll go to within like a certain amount of time or whatever. And obviously, at the same time, do not take everything I'm about to say 100% like correctly, because it's just a prediction, and I'm just one guy that's 23 years old. Okay, so people with significantly more experience and more time with the car market are going to be able to accurately predict where these prices are going to go much better than I am. Okay, so just put that, I'm just putting that out there. Like, if people are like gonna watch this video and then immediately go buy one of these cars and then they don't like make the amount of money I said they're gonna make in like the amount of time that I said they're gonna make, don't come back here and start getting mad at me, man. It's just a fun video I'm making. All right, without further ado, let's go right into the list with number 16. Number 16 is going to an oddball. It's the Chevy Camaro SS 4th generation. This is the, oh my god, I freaking had a band-aid on, guys. I took the band-aid off and it was actually like a gouge, and now my fingers got all tape on it, so everything's sticking to it. It's annoying. Either way, though, it comes with a 5.7 liter V8 making 300 horsepower, and it's rear wheel drive. Now, here's the reason why I believe it's going to get relatively expensive. You could find SS 4th gen for around, like, I would say 7k, 6k, 5k, around that range right now. Might not be in the best condition, but that's what you're finding. But they come with an LS, and people usually don't like the looks of these cars. But we're getting into that time now where the 2000s kids are coming around, and the kids that these guys might like the looks of these cars. So if people start liking the looks of these things and they don't just buy it just for the motor, because that's what they were doing before, and they start to actually use the platform it's on, I could easily see this thing rising up to like 10 grand in the next couple of years. 15th is one that I'm surprised hasn't reached its new heights already. It's the Acura Legend. The Acura Legend literally has the word legend in its name. It is not the fastest car in the world. It doesn't have the best performance, and I think that's the reason why it's still relatively cheap, but come on! The puppy comes with a 3.2 liter V6 making 200 horsepower, and it's front wheel drive. Yes, front wheel drive is like obviously not the biggest selling point, but it's a Honda. Everybody with a Honda knows that their car's about to be front wheel drive. And the Acura Legend is not only like the first Acura ever, which is obviously pretty cool, but it's also like a much more sporty looking two-door. There's also, they made four-door options too, but two-door like sports car looking Acura, and I'm surprised it hasn't risen already in price. You could find them for under 5 grand. The Type S ones, yeah, you're not finding those for under 5 grand, but like the regular base models, easily can find them for under 5k. And I think once the community starts to talk more about them, which is bound to happen soon, they're going to rise. 14th is an obvious one. There's a couple of those on this list where it's just obvious that they're going to rise up in prices. It's just a no-brainer. It's the Nissan 300ZX Z32. Z32s are probably one of the more popular Z cars out there. I would say they're definitely up there. I think 350Zs and 300ZXs are definitely the two most popular. And they come with a 3 liter V6 making 222 horsepower, and they are rear wheel drive. You can find Z32s for 5 grand right now, which is insane, because they're beautiful, beautiful cars. Yes, the motor sucks, and yes, the engine bay sucks to work on, but the twin turbo models have already gotten expensive, and I think it's going to kind of follow suit with like what the Mark IV Supra did, right? Where the bi-turbo Mark IV Supras were stupidly expensive, but now you can't even find the naturally aspirated ones for less than like 30 grand. I think that's going to happen with these cars. Eventually, once the twin turbo models get just too ridiculously expensive, the base models will start to rise up in price like crazy. 13th place is a car that I love, and so I really hope it does. Well, actually, there's every car I've talked about so far, I hope they don't rise in price because I want to buy them one day. But it's the Volkswagen GTI Mark III, specifically the Mark III. But I also am kind of thinking about the Mark IV a little bit here. But we're gonna go with the Mark III in today's video because it's older. It comes with a 2 liter turbo inline 4 making 115 horsepower, and it's front wheel drive. It also did come with the VR6, so if you get the VR6 model, you're already kind of looking at a pretty penny with these Mark IIIs. But I believe the 2.0 Ts are going to start to rise up in price as well, just kind of like what I was talking about with the 300ZX. It's going to follow suit with the VR6s. They're just going to start to want that platform. The Mark III GTI is a beautiful car. It's an absolutely beautiful car, and it's getting to that age now where they're becoming more and more rare, and I just like they're still pretty cheap right now, but I believe they're gonna be stupid. 12th place is the easiest one on this list, and that's why it's pretty low. It's the Nissan 240SX S13. S13s have already risen in price. I mean, this one is just like a following the trends one. This is just like a safe option. If you don't want to take a gamble, but you're not going to make as much, then buy one of these. They come with a 2.4 liter inline 4 making 145 horsepower, and their rear wheel drive. The most interesting car in the world is the S13 because they really weren't anything special. Like, I love the S13 too, don't get me wrong, but they weren't anything. The reason why people were buying these for like $1,000, $800 is just because because they were rear-wheel drive. Like, the motor sucked in them. The KA is not a good motor. It's reliable, sure, but it's not good for making any power or anything like that. People just bought them because they were just fun little rear-wheel drive thrashers, kind of like the Volvo 240. And so people were copping them up, but now people love them. And obviously they've risen like crazy over these past couple years, and I only believe, obviously, they're just going to keep doing so. The supply and demand is getting shorter and shorter, so it's a safe option, but it's kind of a boring one. 11th place, however, is another kind of safe option, honestly, but I feel like most people just don't even think about it when they think about, like, appreciating cars. It's the Audi S4 B5. These things are tuner monsters. They are beautiful cars. Every 2000s kid knows about the S4 B5. Every 2000s kid wants an S4 B5. Come on, who doesn't? They're just such a simple but good-looking platform, and they come with a 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6, and it makes 250 horsepower going to all the wheels. But that's 250 horsepower in a twin-turbo V6 from, like, the early 2000s, late 90s, dudes. That is insane. That's a really good motor. Like, this car was incredible, and it can make insane power. Now, the reason why they are still kind of cheap nowadays is because they are, first of all, not that old, and second, they're really unreliable. But once it gets to the point where people don't care about the reliability anymore, and they're just buying it for a Sunday cruiser or a collector's car, it's gonna fly up in price. Just right now, it's a little too young. I think maybe like another 5 years, and these things are gonna be stupidly expensive. 10th place is another kind of obvious one, but another one that I feel like people don't think about when they think about appreciating cars, the Toyota MR2 SW20. This is one of those cars that I believe should have been, like, considered a JDM legend. Like, you know, people talk about the R34 GTR, FD RX7, Mark IV Supra, and NA1 NSX. Like, those are the 4 JDM legends. Cars like this, and actually the next one, I believe should have been up there with those, because it comes with a 2.2-liter inline-4, making 130 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. That's the base model. Now, the turbo models are already stupidly expensive. It's really hard to find a clean one of those. Honestly, it's really hard to just find a clean one, and then if you do find one, it's going to be stupid expensive. But the base models are starting to rise in price, because they are cool cars. Pop-up headlights, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, beautiful-looking Toyota. Like, that's obviously a really cool car. Are they a pain to work on? Sure, but people are starting to not care about that, and they're starting to look over that to buy it as a collector's car, and I think it's going to keep happening. But like I said before, number 9 is another one of those cars that I believe should have been a JDM legend, and I'm surprised it isn't, because it's a Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX 2G. The fact that these cars are still cheap is actually insanity to me. Like, I literally cannot believe it sometimes. It's so crazy. These cars deserve so much more praise. They come with a 2-liter turbo inline-4, making 210 horsepower, and it's all-wheel drive. It might not sound like anything great on paper, but it's an all-wheel drive Eclipse with a turbo 4-banger, so you know it's going to make some more power. And once you start to do some research on that motor, you realize, oh my god, it's a watered-down 4G63. It's going to make insane power, and it looks incredible. What is there not to love it? And Paul Walker drove one as his first car in Fast and Furious, and that always makes cars more expensive. So how is this car not more expensive? You can find them under 10 grand still, but I truly believe not for long. The second these cars gain the spotlight, it's over. Like, it literally, all it needs is one YouTube video to go viral of somebody hyping up these cars, and it's done. People are going to realize. 8th place, however, is, oh my god, I almost just choked on my own saliva there, is another obvious. A lot of these are obvious ones, but they're obvious for a reason. They're good. They come with a Mazda RX7. It's a Mazda RX7 FC. It comes with a Mazda RX. Yeah, you buy a Mazda RX7 FC, and you get one free. Did you know that? No, but in reality, these cars, literally, when I started my YouTube channel, were under 5 grand, and I started my YouTube channel in 2019. So just 5 years ago. Wow, that's a long time, actually. Just 5 years ago. No, I didn't start my YouTube. I started my YouTube channel in 2021. What am I talking about? 3 years ago, these cars were under 5 grand. Nowadays, it's impossible to find them there. They come with a 1.3-liter 2-rotor rotary engine, making 160 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. Again, the reason why people aren't really buying them now, and the reason why they weren't buying them back then, is because the rotary is unreliable. They didn't want to deal with that troubles. But now that they're getting to the point where they're so rare, such collector's cars, and the people that are buying them are, like, holding on to them, and they're not using them as daily drivers, they're rising in price every single day. Again, the turbo model's already stupidly expensive, but the base model will get there. 7th place is a TikTok boy, but I believe it's here to stay. A lot of these cars, they'll rise in fame on TikTok, and then they kind of drop off, but it's Lexus LS400, and I believe this one will not fall off, because it does deserve the fame. It's a pretty cool car. Does it deserve as much fame as it gets? I don't know, but it does deserve at least some. The car comes with a 4-liter V8, making 270 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. On paper, this car isn't actually the coolest thing in the world. It's a sedan, automatic only, big old land yacht, right? So people, like, why do people want them? Well, the 4-liter V8 is incredibly reliable for a V8. It's insanely reliable. It makes 270 horsepower from factory. It's called the 1UZ. It's a great motor. It's the same motor they put in the SC400, GS400s. It's an incredible motor. The car also looks incredible once you, like, stance it and put some VIP stuff on there. And since that's obviously the route that the car community is going nowadays, people like the stance stuff. it's gotten its fame. Literally 2 years ago, you could have found these for like $1,000, $1,500. Nowadays, they're selling for like $4,000. They're gonna keep rising though. They are a good car, and the second people start to realize they can manual swap these, it's over. Sixth place is finally not a JDM car. I feel like we hit a really long JDM patch there. It's 4 cars in a row, but it's the BMW 330 Ci E46. They already are rising in price pretty frequently, but if you look at it's insane. It literally, like, I was doing some research on these cars. It's crazy. The car comes with a 3-liter inline 6, making 225 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. The ZHP package has already risen up in price by a pretty significant margin. The 330 Ci base is not really that much different than the ZHP, and they're gonna fly up there. On top of that, if you look at like Bring a Trailer or carsandbids.com and you look at prices for 330 Ci's, old people are paying a pretty penny for these cars, where on Facebook Marketplace they're selling them for like $5,000. So they sell them for like $5,000 on Marketplace. You can pick one up and then you bring it over to Bring a Trailer and sell it to some old smoke for like 8, 9, 10 grand. It's crazy, and eventually these cars are going to become eaten up. Fifth place is a car that I've seen the rise already through my YouTube channel, the Acura Integra GSR. This is another one of those cars where at the start of my YouTube channel I could include these in videos of cars under $5,000 all day long and nobody would bat an eye, because the GSR Integras were under $5,000 3 years ago. It was easy. These things were not worth anything 5 years ago. Nowadays, no siree. They come with a 1.8 liter inline 4, making 170 horsepower in its front wheel drive. Obviously, it's an Integra. It's a GSR. It's slightly more powerful than the LS, the GS. It's slightly just better in every way than those cars. But is it really like the best that Acura has to offer? Obviously not, but that doesn't matter, because people are starting to want these more and more and more, especially since the Type R Integra is getting so much hype lately. They're trying to buy Integras, and the next best thing is a GSR. These things are at like $8,000 now, and like I said, just 3 years ago it was at 5. Fourth place is another banger, a car that I was thinking about buying myself. It's the Infiniti G35 Coupe. G35 Coupes are kind of following in the 350Z's footsteps, and 350Z is also another car that could have been on this list, but spoiler alert, it's not. And they're kind of like they're right behind the 350Z. Every time the 350Z rises in price, the G35 follows a couple months later. Car comes with a 3.5 liter V6, making 287 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. It's the same thing as the 350Z pretty much, but the problem is 350Zs are starting to get expensive too. They're starting to get up there in price. They're still a good deal, still a good option to buy if you want to hold on to a cheap sports car for a little while. But the G35 Coupes are even cheaper and are even right behind it. But like I said, every time that somebody hypes up a 350Z, that's a good thing for a G35 Coupe. So if you see 350Z hype, think about the G35 Coupes. These things are still under $5,000, but not for long. Another car that's still under $5,000 but not for long is the BMW 328i E36. It's miraculous that this thing has still survived this long under $5,000. They have gotten praise for the past like freaking 10 years now at this point, and they're still sitting there at that 5K mark. It's getting hard, but they're still there. The car comes with a 2.8 liter inline 6, making 190 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. The fact that this car gets as much hype as it does, yet it hasn't risen to the prices that you would expect. Like, you would expect a 328i E36 to be as expensive, if not more, than like an S14, right? Like 10 grand at minimum. But no, luckily they're still cheap. Eventually what's going to happen though is these things are going to be destroyed. They're drift cars, so people are drifting them into walls all the time, and there's not that many more of them left anymore. So pick them up while you still can, especially the 328i's. Now like 325i's, 323i's, yeah, they're still a good option, but I just don't think that they're going to rise as much as the 328i will. Second place is another car that honestly kind of just fits right into the bill as the E36 or E46 we were just talking about, the Lexus IS300. It's reliable, sedan, rear-wheel drive little drift car that people are starting to bang into walls. The car comes with a 3-liter inline 6, making 225 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. That is the 2JZ, but no, it's not the 2JZ. But people don't really understand that, and so I feel like most people are going to see that this car comes with a 2JZ, and they kind of hype it up more than it deserves, if I'm being honest. And now, back when I started YouTube, dude, you could find manual IS300s for under 5K. Imagine, those were the days, man. You could find manual IS300s for under 5K. You cannot find a manual under 5K anymore. You can barely find a nice automatic under 5K. Like, if you buy a manual one, or if you buy an automatic and swap it to a manual and hold on to it for literally just 2 years, you'll make us insane profits on these cars. Like, this one is without it, like, not risky at all. It's an obvious profit. But first place, and arguably one of the more risky ones of this list actually, is the Mazda Miata NB, not the NA, because the NA is, again, it's obvious. Yes, if you buy an NA right now, will it rise in price? Absolutely. They're becoming like JDM Legends almost, and it's kind of crazy to say that because it's just a Miata, but they are getting up to that level at this point. But the NB is the same thing for cheaper right now, and eventually when people find out that they are the same thing, just slightly better in every single way than the NA, and they can't afford NAs anymore, goodbye NBs. They come with a 1.8 liter inline 4, making 135 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Obviously, it's not like as cute as the NA, so I don't think girls are going to like it as much as the NA will. It's not going to get as much TikTok clout as the NA because it's just not the same thing as the NA. It's more of like a sports car than it is the Miata, the cuteness factor of it, right? So it won't get as much praise in that sense. Like the kiddies, the young folk won't talk about it as much, but it will 100% rise. It's going to follow the NA. The second people can't afford NAs anymore, they're going to start buying the NBs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the 16 cars that are dirt cheap right now. What I mean by dirt cheap is kind of like under 5 grand. It's under 10 grand is really the price point for this video. But yeah, it's cars that are under 10 grand but are going to fly up in price. I truly believe you buy any one of these cars right now in 2024, you are looking at a gold mine in future years. I'm sorry for my dog barking. He loves to do that. He's like, oh my god, is Mark recording right now? That's what he does. That's what he does. See, I told him to shut up. That's why he stopped talking. I can speak dog. But anyway, yeah, I truly believe you buy any of these cars right now, wait for maybe 2 years, and you're gonna be making tons of money. Some of them I think you could even like double your money, like the LS400 and maybe the G35 Coupe. I think the G35 Coupe, LS400 are two good ones where if you buy them now in literally just like three or so years, you will double your money. Because like you can buy a G35 Coupe right now for like 4 grand. Will it need work? Yeah, but you're going to be holding on to it for 3 years. You've got time to work on it. So buy it with some issues. Just make sure the mileage is low and it's got a clean title and there's not that much rust. And you fix up all the issues over the course of the next 3 years for pennies. Just, you know, cheap your way over there. Fix them all up. 3 years later, you got a car that you bought for 4 grand that's worth 8 grand. Honestly, you could do that now with G35 Coupes. You could do that now with LS400s. If you buy one with low enough miles, but it just needs work and you know you're mechanically inclined and you can fix it, or you know somebody that can, and you fix it up, it's car flipping, you know, it's obvious. But if you hold on to it, it can sell for even more. These things are, cars are stupid. Cars are weird. They make no sense. I don't like cars anymore. I'm going to change into a TV channel. We're going to talk about TV specs. Look at this, my LG 460 420 no scope. It's got Snoop Dogg inside of it. Smokes weed with you. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.